Hello and welcome to this edition of You Can Get There From Here. I'm Dr. Joe Moore, Chair of the Department of Communication and Digital Media at the University of Central Missouri, and it is my pleasure to visit every week with some of our alumni. I talk to students who graduated in digital media production, some who graduated in communication studies, others who graduated with their master's degree. Today we have a special guest who didn't get his degree in any of those areas, but he was one of our minors. Say hello to Tristan Jordan. Tristan, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dr. Joe?
I'm doing all right. Good to have you on with us today. So Tristan, he got his degree in sport management, but he had minors in theater and sport communication. And today he is a play-by-play announcer, a color analyst, and a public address announcer at stadiums and schools all across Missouri and Kansas. So Tristan, glad to have you on with us. Tell us about what you're doing today and what you did or what you've been doing since you graduated.
Yeah, sure. So I graduated mid-pandemic. The COVID crisis shut down school, and I graduated from my parents' couch. I ended up walking in 2021, which was great. But from there, I found roles as a substitute teacher to ensure that I didn't have a gap in my resume, to keep showing that I still have those interpersonal skills, working with team members, things like that. And I also love working with kids. So it was a nice, easy transition. Along my educational path at UCM, I made a pit stop in the education wing and then sidestepped it and went back into other areas. So I started substitute teaching, and then I moved into administrative work. I was the foundation coordinator for an education foundation in a small town in Kansas, and now I am an administrative assistant for a private school on the Missouri side, and that sort of pays my bills and gives me benefits and all the nice things to enable me to pursue my passions in the evenings, which are broadcasting and public address announcing.
So I love that you're doing something, as you say, to pay the bills, because I think a lot of students come through and they think that being a public address announcer or a play-by-play announcer, that's a full-time job. And you look at guys like Mitch Holthus, who's the play-by-play announcer for the Chiefs, that's not his full-time job. He's a businessman. You look at Mike Kelly, the play-by-play announcer for Mizzou. He is an insurance, but he gets to fulfill his passion, what they call their well-paid hobbies by being into play-by-play, being in the color commentary, doing public address, and those sorts of things. How do you find those opportunities?
Yeah, so the most recent opportunity that I had to go into broadcasting was I was actually through my full-time job. I was standing in the conference room where a couple of our staff were having a meeting, and one of my work friends was saying, "Hey, like my wife is an assistant coach for this team, and they're looking for a broadcaster, and they're really not sort of sure what's going to happen. The whole season starts in a month, and they have no broadcasting person. They're going to set it up on an iPad and just have no commentary." And I was like, "Hang on, hi, I have a degree in this. What can I do? How can I help?" And it just so happens that my father-in-law he does a bunch of video editing and training work and things for LinkedIn. So he loaned me a couple of cameras, and I was able to use my laptop and run through the Huddle system, and who ended up buying Blue Frame, I believe. So it was a similar system to what we used in the sports broadcasting classes at UCM. And so I was able to sort of network my way in, and I was their play-by-play and color and camera operator and stats guy and graphics. I did the whole broadcast for a nice little season at the Women's Premier Soccer League. So I was the voice of the Kansas City Courage for a season, which was really fun.
That's outstanding. So you were kind of on that semi-professional track working with them,
Yes.
and since then you've been able to parlay that into some work with a local community college, correct?
Yes, yes. So part of my broadcasting experience, so I've been working as a freelance broadcaster for a couple of different organizations in Kansas and Missouri. And one of those, my co-broadcaster ended up moving back to Minnesota. And when he left, he said, "Hey, dude, I had this job as a a public address announcer for Johnson County Community College, and they're looking for a voice." And he's like, "I know no one better than you." And he's like, "Your background in theater makes you put on a character voice when you want to, and it works really well." So I reached out to Johnson County, and they had already heard of me through my friend, and they said, "All right, let's make this work." And I've been there for this is my second year, and they have some of the best facilities and staff, and it's a really perfect spot to be.
Yeah, I was up there 3, 4 weeks ago working with a couple of the professors because we're going to try and get an articulation agreement going with Johnson County. And I saw their facilities. I was like,
Fantastic.
wow, this is a community college. They
Yeah,
have some really nice stuff up there. So that's something else I find really interesting is a lot of people think I want to be a play-by-play announcer. And they don't think about, well, maybe that doesn't work out, but doing public address, you're still getting to call the action. You're still getting to be a part of the game. You're still getting to be a part of hype, maybe even more so, hyping up the crowd, right?
absolutely. And something that I knew very little about. I'm a soccer guy through and through. I know soccer more than anything. Soccer, when I'm watching it, time will freeze and I can predict where the ball is going to go, who's going to do what, and I can tell that story that way. But through public address announcing, I've gotten to see other sports from a different angle, and I understand the passion behind volleyball and behind basketball, and I can understand because I'm now at that table level and I'm feeling the energy. I'm feeling the spit of the coaches on my face. I'm really in the atmosphere. And that enables me to, when I go back to play by play, I can go, hey, this is what's happening. This is what this conversation is in this volleyball huddle right now. This is why they called the timeout. And it adds a whole other layer to the broadcast. It's the same reason why I recently coached soccer for middle school boys, because that's another layer to the broadcast, exposing yourself to every facet of the sport, whatever your sport of interest or, and all of the sports, really. It's another brushstroke. It's another flavor of blue that you can add to the painting of color commentary.
Well, and speaking of all those different facets, you were a multifaceted guy. We talked about you got a bachelor's degree in sport management. You had a minor in theater. You did the minor in sport communication. What all were you involved in when you were in college?
Yeah, great question. So I started at UCM as a as a major in musical theater performance, and I ended up going to the theater department, and I was like, "Hey, I don't really know if performing is my thing." And they were like, "No, it's definitely your thing. You're way too extroverted and way too bubbly guy to not do it. In fact, we're gonna add a dance minor to your roster." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, yeah, we'll do that." And so I did that for my freshman year, and then in between, I was like, I think education or something working with people, not just performing, is really where I want to go. So I went open options for a semester and started doing secondary theater education. And through that, at the end of that year, I was like, it was really cool to learn the psychology of education, but I don't know if this is really where I want to go. And so I ended up talking with Dr. Slana at the time, who was the chair of the sport management program. And he said, we would love to have you. We would love to bring you in. And then I met with you about the sport communication program, and you sort of helped me along that and got into the sports media classes and sport communication minor. And that was sort of how all those things fell together. So through my first 2 years, I had 2 weeks off where I wasn't involved in a production or a show of some kind. And that really sharpened my articulation and my ability to be a showman, right? I've been performing since I was 7, but on a stage in front of lights, it's a completely different atmosphere to on a camera where hundreds of people, thousands of people are watching, but I'm in my living room, right? There's no I'm here. And so it's a nice dichotomy where it reminds you, all right, people are listening. I still have to be professional in what I'm saying, but at the same time, there's an entertainment aspect to this. I don't want to just tell you what you're seeing already, because that's you can do that on your own. I want to paint, I want to add that flavor, that zest of the broadcast. Otherwise, why are you listening to me? Go listen to another broadcast, right? So yeah, I was involved in as many things. I had friends on campus who I would walk across campus with, and they'd be like, "Dude, I don't want to walk with you today. It takes 45 minutes to get from one side to the other." Because 75% of campus I would know, and everybody would want to stop and chat. I cherish those rainy days because it was a guaranteed 5-minute walk because nobody would want to chat in the rain. But yeah.
Well, I remember coming to see my daughter was a music education major, was in the
Hmm.
choir, and I came to a concert to watch my daughter, and I look at him, I'm like, it's Tristan. That's one of our guys. And you were up there singing, and you weren't singing, you were performing, and you were really
Hmm.
getting into it. And that I love how you put that it is a performance. You're not there to do a shtick and be the show. They're there to watch the game or hear about the game. But at the same time, they don't want to hear somebody monotone. They want to hear somebody who has some life and has some energy. And you did some games for us, and I remember you brought it, and I'm sure it's only gotten better and better and better as you've been working at it longer. Aside from helping you to build the character, how did being involved in all of that help you with what you're doing today?
Absolutely. I mentioned that I love working with kids, and I'm a camp director and camp counselor and things in the summer as well to keep those educational juices flowing and keep that interpersonal energy up. And it all adds up to being able to go, all right, this is the information that we need to convey, but let's paint this picture so that uh, I, as an audience member, would want to watch this broadcast. If I'm doing something or my co-commentator, we're working together on something, I always share with them before a show. I say, hey, would you want to listen to that opening intro? Or would I want to listen to my opening, my reel? No? Okay, let's shuffle the whole thing. Let's find another way to bring energy to this broadcast because that at the end of the day, as you mentioned, the broadcast is not about the voices. It's about the sport that's being watched. It's about the entertainment on the screen. The vocal is an added element. The graphics are an added element. All of what we do as a broadcast is to enhance the product of the sport. That's the no one's tuning in to look at a lower third, but the lower third, it's so beautiful when they see it, and they don't even realize that it's adding an element because it's that seamless. That's a product of a good performer in this space is being able to do your job as perfectly as you can and have it not be a nuisance. And someone can go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that that guy was the first rookie to ever throw for 1,000 yards. That's really impressive. And then go, wait a second, it was the graphic. That graphics person did their job really well. Or hey, that statistician, or that was a really cool way that I've never considered looking at those words or that play in that way before. So it's our job as a broadcast is to paint that picture so that the audience gets an added layer, not to distract or draw away from.
Have you ever gone online, gone like to YouTube and watched a game from the 70s or 80s?
I have not, but I've seen a few clips on social media.
You got to go back and check one out sometime because that was when I was growing up. And I go back and I look at games from back then on YouTube, and I'll go back and watch my favorite player, Roger Staubach's why I got into sports, and I'm looking at it going, there are no graphics. They don't their scoreboard is just like a little bug up at the corner. Dow
Hmm.
70 37, wash 15, whatever it was. And I'm like, that subtly started coming into the game. And you're right, it adds so much to it. So that's a good call right there. What drives Tristan Jordan? What motivates you?
Positivity, enthusiasm, energy around joy. So if that's something that I look for when I'm bringing a high schooler onto a broadcast for the first time as a camera operator or for the first time as a play-by-play person, I try to say, shake it off. This is joy. We're here because this is what we love. If it's not what we love, we got to find a way to make it what we love. And so when I work with those people or when I'm trying to find that joy, that love of whatever I'm doing, it's finding a way to make it fun for me, but also for the audience. Because if I'm not having fun, neither will the audience. And so it's giving energy, it's providing enthusiasm. I've done intros for basketball games where I'll say a player's name and number, and I get crickets from the audience. And I'm like, all right, time to shift this a little bit. That's a nice little feedback that I get as PA that I don't get as play-by-play, but it's that okay, they're not really buying into this side, so let's gently transition into a different format and try to get that energy out of them because as an extrovert, I feed off of enthusiasm and energy.
Well, it seems like you're really enjoying what you're doing right now. It's varied. You get to do a little bit of something different every time. Is this the long-term goal, or what are your long-term plans?
Yeah, great question. So my end all be all, I would love to do play-by-play color commentary for professional soccer. Men's, women's, it doesn't matter. It could whatever sphere. That is where my true love lies. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this, that is the sport where I'm watching it and I see that one player go this way and another go that way, and I can say, time freeze. This is going to happen to there, and that's going to go there. It happens, and then everybody celebrates. And internally, I'm going, let's go. That just happened. I just did the thing. I had no part of it. I had no part of it. But that's where I get my energy from. So that's my end all be all.
Well, that's a great goal to have, and with your energy, with the experience you're building, I have no doubt at some point it may take some more time, but at some point
Definitely.
we'll be listening to you doing some ball games. So, last couple of questions I have for you, and I ask these of everybody. What is one piece of advice you would have for a current UCM student? And what's a piece of advice you would have for somebody who's considering coming to UCM and studying communication, digital media, sport comm, whatever that might be?
I love it. Yeah, I would say focus on the areas you're proficient in. If you have no experience with a microphone, start a podcast. If you have no experience making graphics, download Adobe Premiere and start making graphics. Download Adobe Photoshop. Do whatever you need to increase that skill level. Canva's great. It's super free. You can play around with it. It's wonderful. If you have no experience in an area, and that's a part of the job that you want to pursue, try it. Talk to your professors. They're all there to help you succeed in whatever you want to do. Ask questions. If you have a classmate that you know is really good or proficient in an area that you maybe lack the skills in, talk to them. Say, hey, would you want to go grab coffee? I would love to talk with you about how you got into this. Interview your peers, interview your professors. Be a sponge of information and of knowledge because there's nothing bad that can come from asking questions, especially when it's about somebody's passion. If they're truly passionate about it, they'll share about it all day.
Yeah.
I love to use an analogy of if there's a room of 100 people and nobody knows anybody, but you put a tube of bubbles in the middle, somebody will get up and they'll start blowing bubbles. And somebody else will go, oh, that looks fun. I would like to share in those bubbles. May I blow bubbles with you? The bubbles are a metaphor for what you're passionate about. If there's a person in that room that says, hey, what gives you joy? One person will step up and go, hey, broadcasting gives me joy. Somebody else will go, wait a second, I saw this broadcast this one time and it did, and it's a chain reaction. So enthusiasm and asking questions is infectious. And the more that you ask, the more you'll absorb. So try something new every day, ask questions as much as you can, and just soak it up because it'll be gone before you know it.
Wow. I never knew what a philosopher you are. That's excellent. I'm going to
Thank you.
steal that bubbles analogy. That's a good one.
By all means.
What about for somebody who's thinking about UCM? What are you going to tell them?
Absolutely. I met several students who transferred in and several students who started as freshmen. And no matter where you start in your collegiate career at UCM, you will immediately be welcomed in. I started as a musical theater kid and then went education and then came into the DMP realm. And I knew no one on my first day of my junior year in my classes. And by the end of the class period, I had three people that I was going to go grab coffee with afterwards and talk about what their path was into the realm. And so no matter where you're coming in at, as a freshman who doesn't know anybody like I was the only person from my high school that went to UCM, or you're a person who knows half of the school already when you show up. This is a community because it's a nice size because it's a community around the school who can also help you feel like you're still at home. Whether you're from giant Overland Park or little Eudora, you can feel like a little bit of home is still around you. And so you have that comfort, but also you're pushed every day to get out of your comfort zone and try new things and become better at whatever your area of interest is.
Well, Tristan, it's been so great having you on the show today. I like the way you put that. It's a community. Thanks for everything. Thanks for representing. Proud of you. Keep doing good stuff.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Dr. Joe. Snouts out.
Snouts out. All right. And thanks all of you for tuning in today. Remember, you can catch every episode on our YouTube channel through the UCM Media Network. That's youtube.com/UCMMN. You can also listen on Spotify. Special thanks to Jake Mager for creating our theme music. And again, this is Dr. Joe Moore reminding you, you can get there from here. Have a great day.